what's up, Springfield? We are excited to share with you season 2 of Springfield Stories. Season 1 was amazing, and we were able to hear and share the stories and the journey of our neighbors right here in our community. Season 2, we have more great stories for you to hear, because we all have a story. We all have an authentic story and a journey, and when we share those stories, it increases our capacity to show compassion, bring unity, and even encourage one another here in our community. So check out this story from one of your neighbors. So what's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Springfield Stories. I have a great friend, great brother with me, man. So share your name.
Dee Miller.
Dee Miller, the famous Dee Miller. Dee Miller, man. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well. Blessed, man. Blessed.
Good deal, man. Now you are known here, for sports and football, but there's more to you than just sports, man. So we want to dive in, man. So tell us, man, your journey, being born and raised here in Springfield, family dynamic, growing up, and all that stuff.
Man, grew up in Springfield, obviously. Mother's name was Patricia. Father's name was Doug. I was the only child, grew up in the Southgate neighborhood. Actually, both my parents are still in that neighborhood. I think my childhood was normal. Growing up, I think being the only child was a difficult space for me growing up. A lot of my peers had siblings, and I always just kind of wanted someone that I could talk to or relate to that looked like me, that came from the same people. You know what I mean? So I believe that dynamic really kind of forced me to hold a lot of things in. Didn't really know who I could really talk to and trust growing up. My parents, obviously, they got a divorce when I was in the second or third grade. That really struck me because, you're only a child, or, you think it's your fault. You know what I mean? So I didn't have any other children in there, siblings that where I can say, what happened, what did we do? I was just saying, what did I do?
Right.
And that was really, really tough. You go from, being underneath the Christmas tree as a family one year, then the next year you got to pick.
Wow.
Who you spending Christmas with first. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that caused me a lot of issues, I think, socially, growing up and just feeling confident about yourself. And, thankfully, though, my parents, man, they were amicable. They were still friends. I think they got to the point where they felt like they were better off not together. And so the way that they handled it, I think, really helped me a lot. Now you see, as I'm older and I see somebody else maybe going through a divorce, and you see all the bickering between the mother and the father, and the kids are just stuck in the middle of that, see all that go on. I didn't necessarily have that. Even though my dad lived on Robinson Drive and we were still on Southgate, he was just a phone call away. Yeah. So if I did something incorrect or did something wrong, I knew that he would still be there as far as a disciplinarian. Even though he wasn't in the actual house, I knew that if I did something wrong, my dad would be over there in a heartbeat.
Right.
But I mean, just growing up and eventually getting used to that, you just got used to it. But at the beginning, and it's something that I always tell a lot of my peers now, all of them have siblings and stuff. Now I have a little brother. He's 20. He could be my son, actually, But that was cool for me, man, to be a big brother. I was 26 when he was born. And so now I'm not only child anymore,
right.
But that was just I think, as far as me, a dynamic that it was a little blip in my life where it was just hard to deal with. And, I think as you get older, things happen in your life and you get older, you don't understand why certain things are, why you believe the way or you feel a certain type of way. And, a lot of it just goes back to our childhood. And I think I've been able to manage it and still be successful. But looking back, definitely was uncomfortable in that position. But, that happens in life. I was just thankful that my parents were still amicable and no hostile or no, my dad telling me this about my mom and vice versa. It was just all love.
I think that's important, man, because you do see that when parents don't stay together, the child's caught in the middle, and you go over dad's house and you kind of hear all this, stuff, and then your mom's house you hear all this stuff, man. Then it just becomes tiring, as a child. You're like, yo, man. Then you know what you say, I don't want to go to nobody's house.
I don't want to go to nobody's house.
Like, man,
I got a hotel, or where can I so go to my auntie's house? Because I don't know this dynamic here.
I don't want to go to nobody's house, man. But it's I didn't know you was the only child.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't know that, man. So do you feel like, man, that I hear a lot of people say when they're young and their parents get divorced that the kids take it on themselves, like it's something they did. What brought you out of that? That knowing that it really wasn't my fault.
I just think just seeing them and all of us having to adjust in this new lifestyle or this new situation for us. You first you're like, man, am I a bad son? Did I do this? Did I do that? And I think that's a natural reaction for kids. But honestly, it's the beef between the mother and the father. And as I got older, I would see other kids experience the same thing. And I realized it just wasn't me. It just wasn't my parents that couldn't make it. It got to a point where I would always tell my mom, like, and everybody thought I was happy, Christmas, you're only child, like, you ain't sharing it with nobody, right? I got all the gifts, but who am I playing with, right?
Right. Take all the gifts back to you, say you just...
But, it was just something that I had to evolve through. And I think, I saw my mom, she moved on with a man by the name of Donald Jackson, who eventually became my stepfather, who, was just like a real father to me. Mm-hmm. And then, I had my dad, he eventually got remarried to Dee Miller, Cassandra. And, it was really cool because, even at Ohio State and game day, all those four would ride to the game together.
Wow.
You know what I mean? Which is unheard of. So, like, after the game, like, I'm seeing all four of them, and they're all walking to the car, going back to Springfield together. So I think that kind of helped me. And, of course, I was in college, but just along the way of seeing other people that were in divorce and seeing children and seeing kids and understanding that this is a part of life, things happen, and that was kind of like my first obstacle. You know what I mean? You have these different obstacles in your life, and that first one was basically like, how are you going to react to it? Mm-hmm. I think a lot of times you can throw in the white flag, give up on life or whatever, or just say, okay, what can I do to learn from the situation and make it better? And thankfully, with the family dynamics I did have around me, even my friends' parents were really, really instrumental in my development as far as that. I used to be at my friend's house all the time. My best friend was, growing up was Chris Wallace. Mm-hmm. He had 3 older siblings. My boy Marcus Long had an older sister, Donna. My boy Craig Fullen, he had a little brother named Chris. Then he had an older brother, Scott, mm-hmm. and Sherry. So I was always either over one of their homes. So that helped me kind of, be away from home and being in an environment that was family oriented.
Yeah. Did you feel like it was? How did you channel that energy of feeling by yourself, being the only sibling? Because at the end of the day, once you leave their houses, you're gonna go back home to, It's
I was always, Mama, can I stay tonight? Can I stay tonight over here? Can I stay tonight? Like, you don't want to come home, boy?
Like, no.
Yeah.
How did you like? What did you put that? Where did you put your energy into as a kid, man, to kind of help you balance that, man, or did you find a period where you were just like
I would
just
like try to
wilding out?
like sections of my day. You know, the morning was the morning, would do that, get up, and I knew that I'd get dressed and probably go hang at my friend's house for a few hours. Then after that, I'm gonna come home and, you know, so I would try to like break my day up in different sections instead of just leaving it open and just thinking everything was gonna happen. So it's like in the morning, it's kind of like I knew I was gonna come back home. You know what I mean? So I would break that up and, you know, hey, Mom's gonna be here at 7 o'clock. It's starting to wind down. So, and the more that I thought about it, it was just that I was just insecure. I was just insecure. You know, all my friends, their parents were still together, and it's okay to be insecure. You know, and it makes us who we are. But it's just something that, you know, now obviously I embrace. I think you got to embrace your past, your history, how everything happened. So, you know, going through the storm, you're not realizing it, but like later on in life, you know, I kind of embraced that.
Was how was education, man, for you? Like, what was that? Was that a big component?
So yeah, man. So you know, I went to elementary school at Perrin Woods, then to Hayward, and then the South. But my parents, you know, they were always academic first. Growing up, I always wanted to play football. You know, NFL was always just a dream of mine. And I just think, too, is, you know, when you're only child, you got to be creative in playing with yourself. You know what I mean? So it was a lot of different helmets I had in the basement, you know what I mean? Or trying to invite my friends over to have some fun. But, you know, it just, son, if you're not getting good grades, you know, we're not getting you this, you're not getting that, you're not going to be able to play sports. So growing up, they had always like emphasized the importance of getting good grades, and that was just something that, you know, kind of came easy to me. You know, I wasn't a 4.0, but you know what I mean. It was just that I can just sit down and take care of my academics, and if I did have any issues, I knew that to speak up and ask for help, and utilize, you know, the things that Springfield City Schools had for me at that time. So yeah, the academic was nice, man. You know, I just kind of look back and, you know, our class was the first class that had the proficiency test.
Wow.
Yeah,
wow.
So
I remember those. Wow.
So you remember them, like if you didn't pass, you would just get a certificate of
That's
attendance.
right.
You know what I mean, for all them years. But yeah, we were always, my parents just always wanted to make sure that I wasn't falling behind academically. You know, so I think they did a really good job of monitoring that.
Yeah, because you know, with athletes, you know, sometimes it's always, you know, the sports come before the academics, you know, and even in school sometimes, man, you know, they put, if you're a good athlete, man, you know, we gonna push that,
Right,
and kind of let your,
right,
you know, academics kind of slide a little bit, but as you get older, it turns out to bite you,
yeah,
you know, in the end. So I think it's solid to know, man. Yeah, you can be a great athlete, but also have academics to back it up as well. But it also comes with a good support system.
yeah. Like you know, my son, he's in all the sports, and of course he likes practicing. You know, I tell him, hey, you gotta get your 20 minutes of reading in. Come on, Dad. I'm like, hey, you know, if you don't get these books, it's not gonna be any football.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it's just that type of idea. And I think I tell him, even outside of athletics, even if you didn't play athletics, you got to get good grades and go to school, go to college, apply yourself. You know, and I think just with my experience now that I've had, I think is good to share that with him, you know, and my daughter. But you know, every morning, you know, they wake up, they come down to the kitchen. There's an assignment for them in the morning. You know, they do their assignments, eat breakfast, then they're in the school. So like we do work before school every day.
That's solid, man.
Yeah.
That's solid. So now, man, you know, you went to Perrin Woods, Hayward, you know, which both schools are still functioning.
Amen.
Strong. South, not so much. Just like mine, I went to North.
Okay.
North is not
Little change.
little change.
Yeah.
I think all of my schools is gone, man. That's crazy.
That means you're seasoned, man. You getting up there.
All of my schools. And now that I think about it, man, I'm like, Gray Hill, gone. Clark, gone. North, gone. Now that I'm sitting here thinking about it, I don't know.
Yes, they are. They all gone.
Feel some type of way about that, man. I don't have no history for my kids, man. Like, at least you could take your son and daughter. Yeah, I went here. Me, man, it's just grass.
Grass.
But what was Hayward like, man? What was your middle school life like?
Man, it was fun. Middle school we had a ton of fun at Hayward. Great teachers. I think for me is like any kid, like you at elementary to 5th grade, you're at the top. You're the king there, and then you got to go back down to the bottom in the 6th grade. And we had other athletes, older Gene Cameron, Puff. So I had like some older guys around. But man, it was just fun, and that's when you really start, learning yourself, understanding your body, understanding your potential. I always tell my friends that in Columbus that, in Pee Wee we had Little Tigers, tackle football. Middle school we went to flag football. Yeah. Then you went back to tackle football. But in middle school, we played flag like tackle. You know what I mean? So, but we had Coach Hickman as our basketball coach and football coach. And it was just fun, man, just seeing young kids out there having fun, trying to get better. Socially, everything was good. Very, 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 very thankful and proud of like each level of education from elementary, middle school to high school. Very thankful of each experience. They were all spectacular.
Yeah. What got you into? When did you start? You say you always loved football. Would you prefer football or basketball?
Football. Yeah. I was always. My grandma said, "Hey, you was always carrying that little ball somewhere." And my dad didn't play football. Obviously, I don't know where I got the bug from. I think I probably found it being creative as only child, and you know what I mean, and venturing off, and but I don't know. I just remember the first day I put that helmet on.
Yeah, it was it.
I was like, "This is what I want to do. This is what I want to do."
Yeah.
And when you say that, you just say that. You know what I mean? But you never know if it's going to eventually happen. But I remember I was like, I want to be a football player.
Yeah. So take us through that journey, man. How from the first, you said the first time you put the helmet on, man, to high school you played, and I know you and Chris is actually my cousin.
I know.
So all of that stuff, man. So take us through that journey, man, of your sports.
So I can remember the very first time I was eligible to play football was in the 3rd grade. Went out for Little Tigers. I was so happy when we got our helmet, our shoulder pads. I was just like, here we go. And unfortunately, my first year, Little Tigers, I broke my tibia.
Wow.
And I guess that allowed me to learn how brutal the game was. And it was also another obstacle for me. Because my dad wanted me to play. My mom and my great-grandmother didn't want me to play. She was also always saying, it's too rough, he gonna get hurt. So I ended up getting hurt and, was in crutches for the rest of the season. Next season come up, I think they thinking like, I'm cool. I'm like, hey, we got football, sign up again. And they like, you want to play again? I'm like, yeah, I want to play again. They was like, okay, well, only way you're going to play again, you got to wear these big knee braces. So, like, we went to the high school, because the high school offensive linemen used to wear these knee braces. So I went and got these knee braces, and, now we call them Forrest Gump knee braces. But back then, we didn't know what to call them. But my mom was like, you want to play, you got to wear these knee braces. And I wore them. I wore the knee braces all the way up until like my senior year in high school. Wow. And, and I think she was surprised because she was like, man, my son really loved this game. And, put the knee braces on, get out there, put in some work.
Yeah.
And, my last year in Pee Wee was obviously really, really good. And then when we went to, middle school, we excelled there as far as like flag football. And then my freshman year, you're back at the totem pole, so you got to kind of like work your way back up there and end up playing a lot. I started defense my freshman year. I didn't really play that much offense. Doug Toles. Doug Toles is here, and he was fast. That's my cousin actually, so he wasn't coming off the field. But I was able to get on as a freshman varsity on defense, and I think I made like second team WL or something like that as a freshman. And then my sophomore year is when I really started playing wide receiver. And we had a couple big games early my sophomore year. And the letters just started, like, I got my first college letter. I forget what it was from, what college it was from, but when I saw that, I was like, I didn't realize the coach was just stamping and they was going through 1,000 kids that way, you know what I mean? Yeah. But I was just happy to get like my first letter to say, hey, we notice you, we're interested in you, you're too young now. So after that first letter, I was like, okay, this is it. So my sophomore year, turned up, junior year, USA Today All-American, senior year, and then, by the time my senior year came, it was just, the mailman would be like, man, this is crazy.
Wow.
Like, because I was just getting tons of mail, and throughout that process, you have to kind of select, you only get 5 visits, and which is hard when you're getting like so many letters from universities where you grew up, like watching, and now you're starting to say, man, I look good in Florida State's uniform. You know what I mean? Or Tennessee's uniform and stuff like that. And so during that process, we had selected Ohio State, Michigan, and Tennessee to visit. Was going to go out to USC. But in the early 90s, they still had a lot of gang violence. There was a quarterback, walk-on quarterback that got hit by a stray bullet at practice. My mom was like, nah, that's not happening. And I was going to go to Hawaii just because I ain't never been anywhere. So I was going to go to Hawaii. I was like, man, I'm taking this trip out to Hawaii. But, when you go through the first 3, everyone pretty much primarily tells you the same thing, how bad they want you and what their university could offer. And by that time, Hawaii, I was like, I know I'm not going to Hawaii. You know what I mean? So I kind of cut that off. But so my first visit was to Michigan. Went really, really well. I just didn't want to play defensive back there. They wanted me to play defensive back, and I just couldn't vision myself hitting guys like Ron Dane and Eddie George. For me, I was like, I want to avoid the hit.
So you always wanted to play offense.
Always wanted to play offense, yeah. So that was kind of out of it. Then I went to Ohio State, and they did it up. They did it up. I was the only recruit that they brought in that entire weekend, and let me go with the team Fridays to the movies, stay in the hotel the night before, get up on the bus, go to the game. And that was cool. And then I went to Tennessee and, fell in love with Tennessee. It's like, I'm going to Tennessee. And, Peyton and I was in the same class. I met Peyton. We were on a Reebok All-American team together. Myself, Peyton, Hines Ward, Tony Gonzalez, a lot of Hall of Famers that you see today. And I thought I was a shoo-in for Tennessee. I was like, I'm catching balls from Peyton and go to the NFL. That was like my goal. And on the way back up to Springfield, my dad just asked me, he said, I know you had a good time. Let's just get back to home and, let the emotions die down a little bit. And, a couple weeks, he's like, how you feeling? I was like, man, I'm still thinking Tennessee. And he was saying, man, well, I think that's good. He said, do you see yourself living in Knoxville after school? And I was like, I'm not sure. I'm going to the NFL. That was he said, well, D, man, it's a dream of yours. Me and your mom, of course, as parents, hope you will be able to achieve your dream. You know what I mean? That's a parent's dream. He said, but I think if you went to Ohio State and stayed out of trouble, get your grades, I think your life will end up better if you went to Ohio State. And, at 18-year-olds not thinking about that stuff.
Right.
So that put some perspective on me. I said, maybe I need to think about that. Not to say I couldn't have been successful in Tennessee,
Right.
not saying that, but, being close proximity to Columbus, being a big-time recruit. So eventually, my dad's my idol. So I just listened to my dad going to Ohio State. And first couple of years started terribly. We even got beat by Tennessee in the Citrus Bowl. And I was sitting there like, I'm on the wrong sideline.
Right there, you wanted to jump?
Yeah.
Like, yo, man, give me another jersey real fast, man.
Yeah. And, but, again, it's obstacles. I think everything was pretty much easy for me in elementary, middle, high school. You get to Ohio State, it's just so much talent. And physically, I just wasn't prepared. And it showed. And so my first 2 or 3 years didn't go really good. I thought about transferring, thought about like maybe football is not for me. And my dad was just like, man, you just got to work a little bit harder. So I started working out with our strength coach a little bit more. I started to lose weight, get faster. And, and eventually things just started to happen. And, every time a freshman comes in, it's not going to be, he's not going to be stardom from the beginning. It's different things. You got to go get adjusted to class, get adjusted to university, training table, tutoring. I mean, it's just really a lot of different things. And I just think early in my career, I just wasn't mentally or physically ready, and just had to grow into that. And again, I felt like that was more obstacles, but like I was always able to reach back from when I broke my leg in the 3rd grade. Like whenever I came against the obstacle, I'd be like, I'm gonna get over it just like I did that. So that's eventually what happened, man. And eventually I started playing and became successful at Ohio State.
Yeah, it's like I love that you was like, man, the first years, man, were terrible, because a lot of times, man, people see the success part, but they don't see the failures and the not so good parts, man. And we oftentimes highlight the success part, man. It's kind of like social media. We show the best side. You know what I'm saying? You show the best side of yourself, man. You don't show all the ugly pictures. You show the good picture that got the filter on it and all that type of stuff, man. That's kind of how, we show the success part, man, but we don't realize, like, nah, it was terrible, man. Like, yo, the first years were terrible. I thought, like, maybe I ain't even cut out for this. Like, it's a huge adjustment. College is a huge adjustment. Yeah. Just academics.
That constantly, it's just, too, Springfield's a small city, right? So everyone knows everyone. Someone goes to a big university, the city gonna be hype, geek, like that's our guy. You know what I mean? So they don't see your guy playing like, where's my guy? You know what I mean? Then it's like, your 2nd or 3rd year, you start to see younger players come in. Then your boys from the crib like, man, how come you ain't playing? Like, hey, my little boy's better than you like that? You know what I mean? So didn't nobody know all that was going on or how depressed I was.
Yeah, I said, did that lead to like depression and a lot of pressure, man?
Because it's what you here for. And like, you want to be able to go out there and perform. You want to go out there and represent your family, your city, your high school, your coaches, your boys you ball with. You know what I mean? Like, hey, this is all of us.
Right.
This is all of us. So when you're not able to showcase that, it's just like, you get up, go to class, you're just in somber mood all day because you're not going to be able to contribute. And it's just not fun going somewhere where you're not going to be able to contribute right now. Yeah. So going to class, going to lunch, I got practice, You know what I mean? And you're just kind of just going through the motions. But what I started to realize was you can't just go through the motions, because eventually you're going to get your number called, right? Just like Eminem said, you got one shot to blow.
Yeah.
So you're eventually going to get that call. So when you get that call, don't nobody care about the stuff you've been in the past, right? When you get that call, you got to make that play, right? Because if you don't make that play, you won't get that call ever again, right? So it started to where it was, I started talking to, he's passed now, his name was Todd Bell. He was a safety at Ohio State, played many years with the Bears, and man, he was just, man, come on, young buck, you know what I'm saying? I know you got it in you. I know you got it in you. You know what I mean? And as I started getting more confidence, I was like, you're right, I do got it in me. It's just been gone for a couple years, you know?
So where was that turnaround at Ohio State for you? Well, first, before we continue with sports, man, what was your academic major?
So I was in sociology, and to be honest, is you go to these colleges, you got all these different, you know, degree subjects that you could pick, and I wish I would have been a little bit more prepared for that. You know what I mean? Like, you go in, you got a lot of guys taking criminology, a lot of guys taking sociology, a lot of guys taking, you know, few guys taking econ, few guys taking business. I mean, the workload is crazy. And so I chose sociology because I always wanted to do something with kids. You know what I mean? So I found like that was route to do something with kids. And so when I selected that major, you know, I thought it was the right major. I was happy with it, and I didn't graduate before I left Ohio State. So I kind of started getting too focused on football. You know, we would start with, I think, like 15 hours, and then I would eventually drop 5 hours. So that kind of like put me behind.
Right.
So when I got through playing, I came back and was able to graduate. And that's when I kind of realized, like, okay, I should have did more research into this just broad sociology. You know, it's basically like, all right, now you got to get your master's.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I just wasn't aware of that, and just wasn't, I guess, it was all on me, responsible enough to dig deep into that career path. It was just, I selected a major, I'm eligible, and then hopefully I graduate, which is not the right path to take.
Yeah. When was there, like, when did things take off? Football, why you say you may start becoming focused on football, was that when, you know, things took off for you?
Yeah. So like going into my junior year, you know, my redshirt sophomore year was difficult because we had a guy by the name of David Boston and Mike Wiley who came in. They were 2 years younger than me, and then, you know, they were playing way more than me. And after the season, we had got two more highly noted recruits. The name was Kenyon Rambo and Reggie Germany. And my strength coach came up to me and was like, hey, you better put some work in, because you don't want what happened to you last year to happen to you this year. And so being at Ohio State, a lot of guys from the pros would come back and work out. So he asked me, he said, hey, I want you to start coming in the morning, working out with the NFL guys. And I was like, really? He was like, yeah. So, you know, you got Eddie George, Joey Galloway, Chris Sanders, Raymond Harris, Mike Vrabel, Matt Finkers, you know, competing at a high level. And I think once I got involved with those guys and started getting better, faster, and just hanging around those guys, that's when I started to really feel like my confidence coming on. And once I got that opportunity in my junior year, I was like, I'm just not going to let this slip through my hands, because I don't know if I'm going to get another opportunity. Right. So I was thankful enough that, because it's tricky. My coach who recruited me, his name was Mike Stock. He left after my freshman year. Then I got a new wide receiver coach that I got to get to know. Right. He probably knows somebody else that he wants to bring in and recruit and all of that. So I was fortunate that, you know, that they stuck with me, because Now I'm like, patience, man, if you ain't contributing by this year, like, man, you just basically there getting your books and working on your network. So I was thankful that I was able to show flashes here and there, but they allowed me to, based off the work that I had did in the off season, say, hey man, you know what? You earned this starting position. You've been here. You work hard, never get in trouble, and that's my junior year. That's when everything started taking off.
Wow. So junior year, senior year. Then you said when did you stop playing for Ohio State?
So that would have been our last game. Would have been January of 1998 in the Sugar Bowl. Yeah, so that was the last game, and wow. Then you're like on this path of now preparing for the NFL.
Yeah, so take us the journey after college, man. Like what was that journey like?
So I left college. I didn't have my degree. I stayed around Ohio State, prepared for the draft. Selected an agent. His name was Joe Siegel. He was out of New York, and went to the Senior Bowl, which was a good experience. I've been watching the Senior Bowl my whole life, so to finally be in it, and that was really nice. And I had always heard about the combine, and going to the combine, that was really interesting. But like my knee issues they lingered with me all through college. Mm-hmm. So when I was at the Senior Bowl, I remember like tweaking it, and I had like a lot of fluid on my knee. And I remember having to fly back to Columbus, get my knee drained. Then I had to go to the combine like the next day. When I got to the combine, my knee was swole. My right knee was swole, this is not the time for it to be swole. It's like 31 teams. You're on 31 different interviews, 31 different trainers just pulling your body like different types of ways. And a couple of teams thought I had a torn ACL. So like even at the actual combine, my knee was starting to become an issue for me. But I was sitting there thinking like, man, I almost put up 1,000 yards. I'm good, and so you start preparing for the draft, working on your speed, working on everything, working on interviewing with teams, because teams are looking at how you grew up, where you grew up. They're probably coming back to Springfield. Hey, what type of guy is this individual? Things like that. And the draft finally came. So, I think I was slated to go anywhere between the second round and the fourth round. The draft opened up, man, and, I was over my dad's house, had a few people over. I was feeling good going into the draft. I felt like I put up enough work to be drafted high. And the first round went past, the second round went past, and the third round went past, and then that was it of the draft that day. So my agent was thinking, hey, I think you're going to get up in the fourth round and, get drafted. You're still around 2 to 4. But each round later, the more money you lose, right? So the fourth round went past, the fifth round, and I was like, what is going on? Like, calling my agent and said, D, I'm hearing something about your knee. And I'm like, okay, all right. So I finally hear like people, cheering, and like, so I realized Green Bay had drafted me. Then they called my home, and I remember doing the interview. I was crying because I was just like so disappointed, happy but disappointed. And I say that because it's only 300 people that get drafted, right? And in perspective, you got to feel very blessed and fortunate to be one of those 300 people who had the same dream as you growing up, right? So one hand I was happy, the other hand was like, man, all these dudes got drafted before me. They're not better than me. I'm still not thinking anything about the knee, right? Get to camp, man, I'm doing really, really good, and tearing my meniscus in the same knee. And so I'm kind of thinking like, all right, I've been through this before, right? Just rehab, come back. It's 4 to 6 weeks. And next day, my agent called and said, hey, man, they're going to release you. And I'm like, what? He said, yeah, they're going to cut you. And I'm like, seriously? So I get cut And that's the most, man, I can't even describe what type of feeling that is.
Wow.
So come in like, hey, D, unfortunately, we're gonna cut you, give you an injury settlement because they can't just cut you when you hurt. And man, so I got cut, flying home, and it was just kind of like, what I'm gonna do now? Like, I'm hurt, I don't have no degree. Like, man, this is a scary feeling. And so I came back, started getting rehab, started getting my speed back together. Teams still would fly you out there to work out and stuff like that. So I flew to Denver. They didn't sign me. The Rams didn't sign me. New York didn't sign me. And finally, at the end of that next season, Cleveland calls me around like the day before Thanksgiving. And it's like, hey man, pack your car up. We're gonna keep you. We're gonna sign you onto the practice squad, and we're gonna keep you for the remaining of the season. Which, okay, it's Thanksgiving, so we got 2 more months. But still, I'm in the franchise now. So I remember like packing my bag up, driving up, check myself in the hotel. And usually when you go to these workouts, it's in and out. Like, you in one day, and like my reservation was like for 14 days. And I was like, this is different. They give me opportunity to find a place and all of that. So I remember like going to the hot tub. Like, I just ran a 4.4 for Denver a couple of days ago, and I was like, I'm back home in Cleveland. My girl, she was my wife, but my wife, Lisa, she's from Cleveland. I mean, like, this might work out. So I get up there, and the next morning they're like, hey, D, how's your knee feeling? And I was like, man, my knee is good. I just ran a 4.4 for Denver. And they were like, hey, listen, we're sorry, but we're not going to be able to sign you on Thanksgiving.
Wow.
So I was crushed. So I'm on 71 South, balling. Like, you got to be kidding me, with all my clothes in that.
Wow.
So came back, tried to shake it off. Spent brief times in Chicago and Seattle, and then just ended up in the XFL. And I think that's when I had that. Everyone has like that, they say that coming to Jesus talk.
Yeah.
Where you're like, I remember one day after practice, it was Memphis, it was February, it was freezing, my knee was killing me. And I think they were paying like $26K at the time. And I remember I was sitting looking out the window, and my roommate was like, man, you all right? And I said, I'm fine, but I think I'm done. He was like, really? I was like, yeah. I said, man, I done had 17 teams. This is 50% of the league that failed me on my physical. I done got released 3 times in 2 years. And obviously I got a knee issue, And so I called my agent, and I was just like, man, like, I think I'm ready to hang up the cleats. And he was like, Dee Miller, you put on an amazing fight. And I was like, really? He was like, yeah. He said, man, people don't go through this. You get cut once or twice and like throw it in. So like, you've been on this journey for like 2 years.
Yeah.
So then I called my mom. It's like, Mom. She's like, I said, how you doing? She's like, I'm doing fine, but how you doing? I was like, I'm good. She was like, boy, stop lying to me.
Mother knows.
So I was like, Mom, I think I'm about ready to like put these cleats up. And I just hear, thank you, Jesus, on the other side, which surprised me. And I was like, Mom, I didn't think your reaction was going to be that. And she was like, baby, what you understand, I've been with you in this sport since you was 8. And you ain't having fun right now. And I wasn't. So she was just like, I think you should come back home, get your degree, and move on. God got your path. I get emotional because there's nothing like when you just telling your dream like it's over with.
Yeah.
From like 8 years old to 24, chasing that dream, and now saying it's over. Who am I? What am I about to do? Do people really love me? People really like me, or did they like what I was? So now I'm having an identity crisis at 25. Like, man, who is this? So, came back, man, and finished school. And she was right, man. I just had my path ever since. So,
Man, it's solid though, bro, in all of that, man, because one, man, to get cut once or released once, you said that stung, but two more times, you know what I'm saying? Like, how do you on your way back from Cleveland, man, mentally, man, how did you even process that? Because
it's hard to process,
Yeah.
man. Cleveland was a drive home. I got released from Seattle. That flight was forever, and it was so unexpected.
right,
I went to Cleveland. I went to Seattle after Green Bay, and was doing really, really well. Then they had a draft. They drafted 3 wide receivers. You know what I mean? And I could just remember on those flights home, be like, man, this is crazy.
Yeah.
Chicago, they try to get fancy and send us to the airport in a limo. But I was one of the first things smoking up out of there. But I just think that, everything that happens in our lives we can build upon. Right. These football athletic obstacles that I'm talking about now, I have the same type of obstacles in business.
right.
Right. So you apply what you went through athletically, the guts, the grit, the perseverance, you know what I mean? I know that on the other side of this obstacle, it's a blessing. God's just testing me.
Right.
So now you got the same thing in business where you can pull those same emotions from and become successful in business as well.
Man, that's solid, man. Then you say at 25, now you're at this place of who is D outside of football?
Man, Dee Miller is a loyal guy, friendly, very humble, loves to give back, loves to mentor, loves to make sure that I'm able to be the best person I could be by helping other people. I think once you become anchored in yourself or success, it's a duty, it's a responsibility to give back and show other people the ropes. I think, when I always go and I talk to people and the kids and stuff, I always pull a kid to the side. Hey, 10 years, I want to see you doing the same thing, right? So it's each one teach one. And I think that for me, that's a great space for me.
Yeah.
Just being able to mentor people because, there's a lot of Dee Millers leaving Ohio State. A lot of guys think they're going to the league. They don't go to the league. And what are they going to do now? They're depressed. The parents are depressed. It's like a 5 or 6 year process trying to get up out of that. So I'm saying, hey, man, I've been through that. But let me cut this time short for you a little bit. You got your degree, awesome. You got your degree while you was at Ohio State. I had to come back and get the degree. So at least we can start plugging you in with people where you think you might want to do business with or work at now. And so that's the thing. I think when I was coming up, we didn't have a lot of people in business where you could go to.
Right.
But I think now, with my era of guys that I played with in the 90s, there's so many entrepreneurs and there's so many resources. So now kids are coming and they're getting recruited. We not only can talk to the kid, we can show the parents, hey, this is what your kid will eventually be. He will eventually be working somewhere probably in Columbus, right? That's his process to maturity. Come here as a young man, thinking about the NFL, things don't work out, still got his degree, ends up working with some company, getting married, becoming a great person in society. That's the goal. And a lot of alumni, the people that make the decisions to hire, they want to be affiliated with someone like that. They want to help kids like that.
Right.
So, yeah, man. So I think like now, I'm 46, and I remember when I used to play at Ohio State, and guys that came in with 46, I'm like, man, that dude,
Now
now it's me, right?
Now people are like, man, D 46. Which is not even old.
It's not even old, man. But it's football old, right? Because even in your 30s, people think that you're old in football. You know what I mean? Because people retire in their 20s. You know what I'm saying? So,
which is crazy.
It's crazy, but yeah, man, it's been a good ride.
So bring us up, man, as we close, man, to Columbus. You mentioned your kids, your wife, man. How did that process come? And then you also mentioned business, and bring us into that process, man, as we wrap it up.
So, I met my wife Lisa at Ohio State. She was going through. She was going to be a dental hygienist, and there was a little party. It's called the Icebreaker, and it's like usually the first party of the year or whatever. And let her tell it. She gonna be like, you was a senior at this little freshman party or like whatever. So might have been good, but met her, man, and we kind of man just hit it off. She met my mom, and my mom never really got into well relationships, but she was like, hey, I like her, and I was like, okay, mom, and now. We've been married 17 years.
Wow.
Drew is 8, London is 6. She's a nurse practitioner at Ohio State. I've been a State Farm agent. It'll be 17 years this January.
Wow.
So that was a great decision. I'm glad I found that. And, of course, I do the real estate here. So life after football has been challenging, especially the younger you are and when things are done. But, these last 6, 7, 8 years, because it's still, it can run with you. Right. Just because, you're older and being successful, like my family knows when football starts in camp in July, I'm moody. I'm a moody because my body is still like, I'm thinking it's football time, and it's like it's not. If I'm short or something, she'd be like, it's football season. He on that kick. Everybody, even my dad when he was still living, my mom, man, my aunts, like everybody's been so instrumental in my development after football. I got a great supportive unit.
Yeah, that's solid, man, and I think that's important, man, in development.
Need that, bro.
You got it, man. So, man, as we wrap up, man, what are some things, man, that you would like to see in Springfield? Your thoughts, man, just how you think from where you were growing up, man, to where Springfield is now, man. What's your
man? It's crazy, man. Just seeing the growth and the development, around here. For me, I love Springfield. Even my Facebook, I rep Springfield, Ohio. I'm always Springfield. And now, which is when I came up to Ohio State, you say Springfield, people are like, Springfield, And to fast forward now, I think when you look at the success of the athletic program, I always have a lot of peers that I played with in Columbus, like, man, Springfield on fire down there. I think I might want to transfer and let my son go down there. I'm serious.
Wow.
Like, you got guys that's like wanting to relocate to Springfield, which sounds crazy. So to your point, what I like to see, I love to see the development. I love to see I would like to see the houses on the south side better. I would like to see the roads better. I feel like if you drive around the city, there's so many abandoned properties that doesn't do anybody any good. Right. I would love to see the city hold those owners accountable, right? Because having a nice neighborhood and then having, something that's ran down, the roof is all caved in, doesn't do anything for anybody.
Right.
So I just I would love to see limestone better developed. Do you know how many cars go past exit 54 on a daily basis?
Facts.
Right? Like, what are we doing? Right? You drive past here, you see all of it. It looks grim, not inviting. Even if you pass going out East Main, I mean, you got to drive a few miles before you get to the city.
Right.
I feel like we're losing out on so much potential revenue right there. Now, I know they're making it, with the highway, they're doing something like there, but man, let's not forget about the south side. I would love to see as much things as go on the north side, smooth roads and all that. We need that on the south side too.
Yep. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
I appreciate you, man.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you, man.
Yep.
Yeah.